You made a fool of everyone. Greetings. Greetings, YouTube audience. Just listening to the Beatles. Well, I thought I would do the first in the extremely long and ongoing, off and on, series of profiles of Christian apologists. The first Christian apologist I wanted to look at is Plato. And I know what you're thinking. Plato was not a Christian. And you were quite right. Plato was pre-Christian and pagan. Nevertheless, he became so important for later Christian thinkers and defenders of the faith that it behooves us to consider him first, even though he's not strictly speaking a Christian apologist. After Plato, I'll take a look at Aristotle, who, like Plato, was not a Christian apologist per se, but laid the groundwork for others to come that were. Plato was the follower of Socrates, Socrates, as Bill and Ted would say, and as Socrates, of course, was the Elvis Presley of Western thought. Plato is perhaps best known for his allegory of the cave. In the interest of time, I won't read the allegory, but it is well known and you can track it down elsewhere, as it's readily available on the internet, for example. The allegory of the cave is not unlike the scenario presented to us in the Matrix trilogy. There is a world which presents itself to the senses, the sensible world, but there is also another world, a second world, a more real world, namely the intelligible world. The second world is the world of ideas. That's ideas with a capital I. I am now sitting in a particular chair. My computer, a laptop, is placed on top of a different particular chair. Neither of these particular chairs, according to Platonism, is the real chair. There is, says Plato, an ideal chair. This general or real or ideal chair is the pattern which all sensible chairs are patterned after. We must not make the mistake of confusing the sensible chairs of our everyday experience as being the more real. The most real is only in the ideal realm. The sensible world is the less real world, contrary to what most people would think today, perhaps. What most people perhaps would think that what we can see, touch, feel is the more real. But that's not what Plato thought. Now, within the ideal realm, there are many ideas. Ideas with a capital I. Not only is there the idea of a chair, that is an ideal chair, there are also ideas of, for person, bed, chicken, rock, and so on. The one person in the realm of ideas is perfect and unchanging. Particular men and women, as we know, are not perfect, and unfortunately, we grow old and die. Prior to Plato, pre-Socratic philosophers argued over whether reality is changing or if it is static. Heraclitus said you can't step in the same river twice. The world is in a state of constant flux, he said. Other pre-Socratics, particularly Parmenides, pointed to other facets of reality which seem to betray a static nature. Both Heraclitus and Parmenides had evidence for their philosophies. Which one was right? Well, since they both had arguments, as I just said, for their view, maybe they were both right. And according to Plato, this was indeed the case. The Heraclitean view was applicable to the world of the sensible, and the Parmenidean view was with reference to the world of intelligibles. The sensible world is not unreal, only less real than the intelligible world. So the various material entities we are familiar with, chairs and humans, for example, are merely a shadow of their ideal counterparts. But material entities are not the only shadows. Abstract concepts like the good, the true, and the beautiful are also shadows of their ideal counterparts. And particularly in the later Platonists, that is, in Neoplatonism, there is a hierarchy within the ideas. The most important idea is the idea of the good, good, that is, with a capital G. Over the door of Plato's Academy was written, "Let none but geometers enter here." He was speaking not primarily of geometry per se, as we think of geometry, but of the realm of ideas, and most importantly, ideal goodness, or simply what Plato called the good. If one does not know or is not learning about the good, one has no place in his school. For example, if one was attending Plato's college to learn how to become a politician, one would need to learn the good so he could model a particular good with a lowercase g, a shadow copy of the ideal good in his statesmanship. So the particular good, or a particular good of the state, is based on the ideal good in the world of ideals. If our leaders do not know the ideal good, they shall fail in dispensing their duties as a competent political leader. Monica Lewinsky, excuse me. Now, when we speak of ideas in a non-technical, non-Platonic, everyday sense, we normally envision some kind of mind for the ideas to reside in some sense. Did Plato envision his forms, or ideas with a capital I, residing in a mind? This is an interesting question. The early Christian apologists, who tended to be Neoplatonists, did place the forms into the mind of God. Plato himself, I believe, did not explicitly say this was the case, though. One other point of Platonic philosophy is important for our purposes. In his book entitled The Timaeus, Plato speaks of a divine designer. The designer is the demiurge. So the demiurge took pre-existing eternal matter, eternally existing matter, and designed it into a particular form. We may equate the demiurge with the good, and it was the Timaeus alone which was available in the Middle Ages. The other dialogues of Plato had been temporarily lost to the West.